Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. And today's segment is going to be a special one. You're going to meet my friend John Buckley. John Buckley is a legend on 47th Street, also an old head in the business, been doing this a long time, since the early 90s, and today we're going to go down and see him. We are here with John Buckley, famously known for the Buckley doll and the Datejust. As you guys heard earlier, Datejust are great investment pieces too. And I thought it'd be a special segment to introduce King of the Buckley dolls, the man himself.
That's me.
So while we're on the subject, tell me how. I don't even know the story about the background of that. How did you?
The background story. We were on Vintage Rolex Forum for years. It was me, Eric Koo, Gary Haftel, all of us, Bob, the whole bunch of us. And John comes on the scene. And look, I sold him a watch in the early 2000s. I sold him a cream 16550. Which was one of the nicest ones I ever had.
Right.
And I didn't know who he was, actually. He calls me up. He's like, oh, yeah, hey, could you ship the watch? I'm like, okay, you're going to send me a wire? He's like, well, I'll mail you a check. I'm like, no, I'd rather have a wire. I didn't even know. I never heard of him. Okay? Right. I'm 58 right now. This is, 20 years ago,
right,
give or take. I never heard of the guy. But, that said, we look and we find the guy, liking watches.
Right.
And, he and Bob were good friends. And he was all over Vintage Rolex Forum. The story goes, Ed Delgado, who is DoubleRedSeaDweller.com,
right,
and a very good friend of mine for many, many years, great guy, and a great site. Ed posted something to the effect that being that John was buying all of those Texas dials,
right,
with the red ROC, 3C ROC dials, which we had been lighting up as questionable for years,
right,
okay, prior to this, me, Kamal, a lot of us. Ed goes, well, being that John is here, why don't we name this the John Mayer dial? And I just had a problem with that. I just did.
Yeah, understand.
Listen, okay, and I'm going to say it just the way I say it every other time, because I have this thing scripted in my head, because this is what I've been saying for the better part of 15, 17 years.
Right.
It's like, look, no offense to the guy. The guy's a really nice guy, okay? The first time I met him, it was, I think, 2007. I had just had a heart attack. The first words he said to me were, how's your health? How are you feeling? He's just a good guy. He's not an asshole,
right,
you could say what you will about his music. I'm not a big, fan, but the kid can play. All right,
yeah.
You're a guitar player. I have lots of guitars over here. I stopped playing many years ago. Yeah. I bought them for a reason.
Right.
Okay, the kid can play. I was just like, how in the world are we gonna name a dial? At the time, there was only the Paul Newman dial. Mm-hmm. There was the Patrizzi dial, which was named after Osvaldo Patrizzi, who is a legend. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, in this racket, he brought this thing to the forefront, with Antiquorum and with in a lot of other ways. So, when I heard that, on VRF, I was like, you gotta be shitting me. It's like, you know what? This kid just hit the friggin' lottery, okay?
Right.
He can go out and buy any watches, and no offense to anybody who hits the lottery, okay? It's like, that's cool, but it's like, me and all the rest of us, we're out here, hustling dials,
grinding,
selling, two-tone Datejusts, in parking lots in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I've been
there. And this kid's, of course.
And
this guy's gonna get a dial named. I was like, fuck no, that shit is not gonna happen on my watch. So the next day, I had always loved these because nobody else liked them.
Right.
And I always just kind of took a liking to them. So I posted, and the post usually comes up right around February. And it's, I hereby proclaim this, the Buckley dial, nobody likes it, blah, 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 blah. And it stuck. And it's just the weirdest thing, because it took a very, mediocre dial. It's still mediocre, okay? But, it's got some cachet now. And I don't think it's because of me. I think it's because it's a really beautifully made dial.
It's very interesting for sure. They're just painted Roman numerals, and they're they're much larger than your typical. They almost kind of look like a town clock.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that about them.
They're so classic.
Yeah.
A lot of guys love these. I have Prince Rainier had one. Tucker Carlson. I mean, a lot. Harrison Ford, Stan Lee. I mean, I got pictures of all these guys wearing, Buckley dials. I mean, people send them to me all the time.
Wow, that's
and it's
awesome.
like, all right, that's cool. I had the nicest one I ever had. I think I sold it to Andrew Shear. And, oh my God, it's like every once in a while I'll call him. I'm like, Andrew, you going to sell me my watch back? He's like, yeah, well, I'll see. I'm like, okay, thanks a lot, pal.
It's just like a brand new old
Oh,
stock.
it was beautiful. I bought it off, oh my God, what's the guy's name? Guy from IWJG, when we were at 37 West in the window. This guy came over. I think I paid $1,700 for the head.
Oof.
And I wore it. It was a blue. It had a little tritium breakdown, but the luminous was perfect.
Oh, man.
And it had white hands. It was a 16030. It's a really nice one. And I don't get attached to watches. I have maybe 2 or 3 watches that I am attached to. One of them he took. My son over there took my first Rolex, which I got in 1997, a 2-tone Datejust. I bought pre-owned X serial at Tourneau. And I had to borrow money from my father so that I can buy it.
That's
I think it was like $3,500 or $4,000. It was all the money in the
brand
world.
New.
No, it was used. It
was used
it was
at the
pre-owned.
time.
I have the card upstairs too. I found the card over the years. That I keep. I keep a white ceramic Daytona because I don't know, because I like it, because I wear it. I've got a Sodalite Sodalite Daytona. And I mean, I can't even think of any other watches that I own that I keep. I keep a whole bunch of hold on. You'll love this. This is like just crap, but I love it. It's like anything with like Saudi markings or co-branding. This one's from Yemen. I mean, this one, the Thai military.
Vito.
Yeah. I mean, I keep all of these because I like them, and they're cool.
This Rolex right here, this is actually signed by Hans Wilsdorf himself with the letter to prove, which is insane to me. What year is this watch, by the way?
30s, I think.
It's the 30s, right?
I think so. It says it on the sheet.
It says the dates back to 1929.
Reference 971. Yeah, it's it's a cool piece.
Back when they were 3-digit reference numbers. That's
like
old.
that, right? That's old. See? That's even before my time. My God. I have weird taste in the stuff that I like. And I just happen to like these. And I mean, if it was just a stick Datejust dial and I called it that, I don't know if it would have clicked, I
mean, yeah, maybe, but I mean, these are definitely like very unique in a sense. Like the first time I saw one, I was confused. I was like, I thought it was aftermarket because I'm so used to seeing Rolexes with sticks and like levitated markers. Like they're just, they're not printed.
Have you seen the fake ones that they're making in China now?
No.
They're all over eBay.
Really?
Yeah, Buck.
They're
all over eBay.
Do you have an example?
I don't have any here.
Oh man!
When I get them, I burn them. I honestly,
I mean, maybe you should.
Somebody made them up.
Are they that popular now?
That's what I'm saying. It's people are making fake Buckley dials. That's like crazy. I have arrived. It's a beautiful thing. Hey, I mean, I don't know.
Isn't that the best form of flattery?
It probably is, but it's so wild, because you look at the fake ones. I mean, and you could spot them,
right?
Okay, just like you could spot any other fake.
Right.
But it's like they're not terrible. It's like they're painted Roman dials, and if you do them, there are definitely distinctive markings on anything Rolex.
Of course.
But I mean, you look at it, and it's like I see them on eBay. Somebody calls me up, texting me. I get a lot of like Instagram and Facebook private messages saying, "Oh, is this a real Buckley dial? Is this real? Is this real?" The guy's going around with this green one that's been passed around. I mean, it's not right, but it's cool.
It is kind of.
It looks really cool. I have a brown one somewhere on the trays over there that I just kept because it was refinished. But it looked really cool. It was brown. It looked like it was tropical.
Right.
Like almost like this is right. Yeah. But the other one was not right. You could see that the paint was off. But it was done like probably 20 years ago.
Right. So it's almost like
I keep a lot of stuff like that only because it's good reference material.
Right.
You could always go back to it and check because there's no substitute, especially in the vintage world, for
this is interesting.
Yeah, oyster quartz.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen one of those.
Yeah, and it takes the same 30-35 hands because 30-35 hands work, on an oyster quartz movement and on any other quickset, 30-35 quickset.
Right.
But I've seen them, I've never had a single quick Buckley dial, and I've seen them out there.
Single quick pres?
Yeah.
Huh.
Single quick President Buckley dial. I've seen them. I mean, they're very, very
Is it possible
rare.
they're dial swap from other watches, or?
but they're presidents, so they have to be done. They have a date
that's true.
hole.
Yeah.
So you've got to, they've got to be specifically made for that. They're just real. Maybe Johnson over I think he's in Singapore. He might have one. But you know how these guys are. These guys hold on to stuff.
But the non-quick presidents are common, right, with the Buckleys?
Yeah, non-quick. It's hard to find them with really good hands. That's the trick with the non-quick, even the
because some of these Buckleys
painting.
have a certain set of hands that go with them, right?
That was always one of the controversies. It's like, oh, Buckley dial has to have black hands. It's like, no, it doesn't. I've had many Snow White with black painted Roman that came from the original owner that were absolutely, the tritium was completely matched, that were silver hands. And they're fine. I sold one to a guy in Dubai, beautiful one that I had for the longest time, and he had to have it. And I was like, okay, I know you're not going to sell it, that's fine. And he was like, are you sure the hands are all right? I was like, listen, you take a look at this thing. This thing was never opened, and I know where I got it from. It was absolutely pristine. And I've seen them numerous times with, silver hands on the, on the gold ones, on the champagne. You'll find them with black hands, and you'll also find them with just regular gold hands.
And when they have those painted hands, they do look so much better.
They look really nice. I like the blue with the painted hands, but I've
white.
had a lot of them that are just regular steel. It's a cool thing.
Yeah, I had a Buckley doll for a while. I was holding on to a year or so ago, and it was blue with the white hands. It was pretty cool.
You sold it?
Yeah.
That's not nice.
I know.
You didn't think you were coming here, I guess,
no,
right?
I didn't know. I would have wore it here. It would have been a different situation.
I don't know about this. I don't know now. You sold the Buckley dial. Listen, you know how many I've sold over the years? I don't even own one for myself, believe it or not. I just don't. I just keep dials.
Yeah. I was thinking maybe he's going to pull out 20 of these things.
No, I'm not a watch collector. I don't, listen, I'm a dealer.
All right.
Okay. Oh, okay. Professional collector.
Professional collector?
That's what Kamal over in England coined that phrase many, many years ago. Professional collector. And it's really, appropriate.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't care less about this stuff,
right.
believe it or not. I'm just like, all right, I know how to, spot it.
Look at it.
I know what's good. I know what's not good. I know how to make
value.
money with it, and I can't sing or dance.
Right.
So I have to do this. There's nothing else I could do except buy real estate.
Right.
That's too slow.
Yeah, it's very slow.
Yeah, this is much more action-packed. I like it. Yeah, but this is one of the trays in them anyway. I probably have more of them thrown around over here. There's trays all over the place because we keep a very, very strict inventory here. You got to know.
It's definitely wild down here for sure.
Oh, I haven't gone through this place probably in a few years. And I keep saying to my son, it's like, listen, let's go down here and let's start, there's trays of cases. It's like, let's just get them and just separate, the 16013s and the 1601s and this and that. Yeah.
Get an organizer.
Yeah. And then it's like, no. You can't really do it with anybody. The problem is you can't, and I've learned this over the years because I've seen a lot of guys that worked with, guys that know what they're doing.
Right.
And they'll work with you for a couple of years and then they'll go off on their own.
Right.
And it's like,
it's
listen.
like any business.
It's like any business.
Yeah.
Here, I teach him. He's the guy I teach. Because if he's not going to learn it, when I'm done, then it's done.
Right.
Take the stuff, burn it, do whatever you want with it, auction it off, I don't care. But, you've got to, I don't know, I'm just very possessive with the knowledge. And people...
Oh, I feel that.
Yeah, on 47th Street, it's like, I'd have guys coming up to me all day long with stuff. They'd be like, hey, is this right? I was like, how much do you want to pay for this? I'm like, I don't know, how much is it? It's your watch.
Right.
Oh, well, make me an offer. I'm like, no, I'm not going to make you an offer. Okay, make an offer. Okay, $1,000. Make me a counter offer. Oh, that's really low. I was like, okay, so you know what you have.
Yeah, they have a price.
You have a price in mind. Just tell me a price. I'll say yes or no, and that'll be it.
Right.
And they'll come up with some, telephone number price, and I'll just say no. And usually they'll wind up coming back. But you don't really find good stuff like that anymore.
No.
You used to.
Right.
NAWCC shows, IWJG shows. We used to go to these shows. Do you know Jared?
Which Jared?
Jared Adelson, down in Cherry Hill?
No.
JMA?
Mm-mm.
Jared and I know each other. One of the first people I've done business with in watches when I moved out to Jersey in 2000. And I know him since he's 17. And Jared and I would go to NAWCC shows out in Pennsylvania, where you just came from, not far from Roman. And we would go there with 10 grand in our pocket and no inventory. And we would work the floor. We'd leave with no inventory and 20 grand. That's how fluid the business was back
Wow,
there. If
wow.
you knew what you were buying, there were 2 or 3 guys that knew vintage but didn't really know it.
Right.
You know, they were like, there's a lot of guys like that.
Right. Well, yeah.
But now everybody goes on their phone and they're, they think they're
prices
an
everywhere,
expert.
right?
Yeah,
Chrono
everybody
24.
knows. They go to Chrono 24. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
if somebody starts, mentioning comps from Chrono 24, it's like, listen, I'm not interested in that. Come up with a number and I'm in and I'll buy it if it's something that I could work with.
Right.
And a lot of times, you know how the business is. Sometimes you got to pay way too much to get somebody on board.
Right.
And we do that. And then other times you pay way too much and you have a basement full of crap. Because this is all the stuff
Good
that,
stuff,
that
though.
came
It's
with,
good stuff.
it's great stuff. But it's all the stuff that comes with, having to buy everything that's
Right.
put in front of you. If you don't buy it, used to be that there were, not very many other players in the game.
Right.
They have to send it out to California, to Eric or Bob or somebody. Now, it's like everybody wants to be a watch dealer.
Yeah, well, that's true.
And I mean, that just grinds my gears. It really does. It just does. I have an opinion about it that is not the most popular opinion. It's like, I really wish it was like, not as popular as it was. Because it doesn't really help anybody.
No.
It's like, it raises
saturates.
prices, saturates the market. I mean, you've got these people out there, they run these pages. I mean, listen, no hate to anybody. I'm not a hater. But it's just like, it's annoying. It's like, I don't care if LeBron is wearing, a smoky AP, or if Jay-Z has a Tiffany Patek. It's like, who gives a shit? It's like, I don't care. I don't want to see them wearing a watch. I want to see the guy that I sold it to.
Yeah,
and,
there you go.
We sell a lot of watches to a lot of people, but, there's always confidentiality agreements, and we always abide by them.
It's gotten a lot harder in a sense because of how many people are in it, and it's definitely more challenging, like you said, but... Yeah. I got in at a time when I feel like it was the end of an era.
Definitely. You've been around a little bit though.
Yeah.
I remember you, from a while ago.
You're right. I got interested in watches around 2010, 2011. Mm-hmm. By 2014, I'd quit my day job and went full steam ahead.
Yeah.
But I feel like back then, it was interesting because there was a lot more people buying and selling, but it was like a tighter circle.
Yeah.
But it was like more action. It's a lot more action in a tighter circle, and I feel like it was just, the first IWJG show I went to was mind-bending. It was...
Yeah, right? I remember mine.
It was mind-bending just because of how many people were trading hands so fast.
You're looking at these trays of watches.
And you would find the rarest stuff in the world just sitting there. Now you go to it and it's just like subs and GMTs and
and everybody knows the market.
Yeah, and everybody
they all
knows.
think they...
Well,
you know
they
what
think,
it is?
yeah.
It's like
it's
this.
a perception.
It's, you know what? My only advantage that I have in this market is that I have to know a little more than the guy who's selling it. And most of the time I do.
Yeah.
And that would either I know something about the item, or I have a customer that's been waiting for that hand that's on his crappy watch for the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to buy that watch no matter what, and he's going to get his hand, and I'll make my money, and I'll move on to the next one. I'll just, the rest of the stuff will be sitting on the table over there, which is usually what happens. It could be a lot worse. I mean, I think that the market right now is so oversaturated with buyers and sellers. I mean, everybody. I mean, were you on 47th Street at all?
Yeah, but it's Passover, so it's
Passover.
Slow.
Yeah, we were there for a couple of hours yesterday, and I got to tell you, it's 47th Street. I don't expect it to be like it was 20 years ago.
They're saying all the action happens in the offices, not on the streets.
You know what? The offices are just an extension of the streets. A lot of times the guys have booths downstairs and they're up and they sit up in the offices. There's no real vintage that you can buy.
Right.
Sometimes somebody will come on the street, and I usually get maybe the third phone call. Because there are other guys that are just gonna buy stuff and pay way more than I will, because I don't know, I'm not into speculation right now.
Right.
I'm not doing this, I don't have to, be the guy who buys everything. I've bought everything, for years, within reason, on 47th Street we had a window, we've had spots all over the place. And there comes a time when it's like, I'm not going to get involved in this at this stage of the market and just buy stuff just so that the next guy can't buy it.
Right.
If I have a need for it, I'm going to pay all the money for it and then some.
Right.
But if I really don't need it, it's like, let somebody else buy it. You want to buy it? And a lot of times they'll come back to me because they know that my checks are good, and you've got these other guys that are on there that, you know, they want to take it on consignment, and I don't do consignment. I don't do memo with people. It's like, look, if you want to buy something, you buy it. I'd rather sell it to somebody, especially now in this day and age, because there is going to be a lot of, well, there are going to be many, a lot of defaults.
Yeah.
In the next, I call 2023, and I'm always a down market guy. I'm one of these guys that lives for a down market because that's where
you buy.
I love it. Yeah. You know, it's great. But I have a feeling that 2023 is going to be really bad. I don't know. You could see with the modern market right now. I mean, modern is starting to take a little, it's like going back to like November, December pricing.
Right.
You know, I mean, January, February pricing was just off the chain. There was just something wrong with it.
Yeah.
It wasn't right.
It was just
and
too
that was,
much.
You know what that is? I mean, over the years, it's like a lot of guys get Christmas bonuses. A lot of guys, their year end, they'll get a distribution, and they just want to put their money somewhere. Now, April comes up, and February, March, the regular people are paying off their bills for Christmas. Then you got tax time that comes up.
Right.
And right about now, like around April, May, it starts getting a little funny because people start going away. It's like most of the guys will go to Italy for the summer. The Italians are, you know, they're in Capri or wherever they are on their boats. And the summer in New York is usually very quiet. Mm-hmm. And I mean, conversely, I mean, we had very, very busy summers the last couple of years. But again, our business is a lot different than the guys that are buying a watch, you know, for a certain amount of money and selling it for a certain amount of money.
Right.
We're buying the stuff basically based on the sum of the parts.
Right.
And if I have to bust it up and sit on a movement or take a movement and put it into another case and move it out to somebody else, hey, more power to you. I'm keeping the dial in the hands because that's what I want.
Right.
You know, that's the only reason I bought the watch.
Right. That's what makes the watch.
Yeah. That's the reason I bought that President, the one that I was showing you with the goofy, with the nice
ruby
dial.
Yeah, that's really nice.
It's like beautiful dial. The watch, yeah, all right, I paid a little too much for the whole thing. But it's like, you know what? I don't mind keeping that dial and just moving the watch out because the watch is good. It's a beautiful watch. Somebody will buy it, even though they're a little soft. But I don't mind, you know? I don't care. And that's why I have all this stuff over here, and that's why I need to have somebody who actually understands it, you know? You know, you'll have to take a shot of him sitting over there. He's very interested in all of this. You know, well, he should be. You know, it's like...
No, this is definitely very interesting. This is like watch heaven right now.
It's not easy, you know? It's not easy to just step into it and learn it if you don't have it burning inside of you.
Right.
When I started, you had it burning inside of you.
Oh,
obviously.
I still do.
I did
you
too.
know, and I still do because I still have a passion for this stuff. I still chase, you know, I still chase certain watches that I want. I still chase, you know, certain aspects of the business that I want to learn. And, you know, there's more to learn every day. Like, I still learn stuff about watches every day.
I do too. Every minute of every day we learn stuff.
It's crazy. It's like,
it's funny.
You think you know something until somebody schools you, and it's like, oh, man.
God. I got schooled on a set of papers recently, and I'm still on the fence about them. Because there are so many variants with Rolex, you know? And it's like when you get a couple of the top guys that'll say, you know, like... the usual suspects, I'm going to call them, that'll be like, oh, these aren't right. And it's like, I'll show them to somebody else who's right at the top of the food chain, and they'll be like, yeah, they're fine. And it's like, they look okay to me, you know? And I've handled a set of papers before. You want to look in one of those boxes over there? There are tons of papers and crap and things like that. I've been hoarding that stuff for years. And I have plenty of, you know, background material to go back and research it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, even though you've never seen it like this, I mean, the font is correct. The spacing is everything on papers. It's like, it's got to be spaced out properly. Rolex, you know, they didn't, you know, line everything up, and everything was proper on it. It looked okay to me. It's like, all right, so I keep the watch over here and nobody buys it, and I'll just sit on it for another couple of months until somebody figures it out. But that's the business that we're in, you know? I mean, how many projects do you have sitting around at home? I mean, I'm sure you do.
I pretty much stopped with my projects.
Really?
Like, it got too stressful.
So you can come and hang out over here if you want and start up some, if you'd like. You know, just take a tray and start putting something together.
Yeah, you're about to say this is like build a Rolex center.
This is it. You know, it's more like a chop shop. Because, this is a chop shop.
Insane,
it's the same concept as like a classic car chop shop. It's like we get the stuff. And I mean, you know, I bought a 1603 off somebody. I don't even know where it came from. And, you know, I'm not asking a million questions about stuff unless it's something that, you know, I'm really interested in. If I'm buying a lot of watches and it's like 5 watches, 10 watches in the lot, it's like, all right, just send them. Sometimes you get them and a case back will be different. Sometimes you'll get them and a dial will have a mark on it that you don't know. Sometimes, the serial number will be pitted and you won't be able to see it. I got this 1601. Really nice looking watch. Swiss dial, early. I mean, you could see that it was a 6-digit serial. And I haven't opened it up yet. And it's just like, all right, the dialing hands are good. Had the nice dagger hands.
Oh,
so
wow.
it's like, yeah. So it's like
the dagger hands. They stopped doing that in like 1957, 1958.
Who knows? It's funny. It's like I get this a lot of times. I get guys that ask me about, if a Mark IV double red sea dweller dial has ever been in a Mark II case, and I'm like, yeah. Well, is it right? It's like, well, I bought it off the original owner. Okay, he had service papers when he serviced the watch 3 times at Rolex since he owned it.
Yeah.
Sold it to me. It was a Mark II dial in a 3.4 million case, a thicker case.
Right.
I think Parmigiani bought the watch off me, and it had the most beautiful tropical dial. I mean, this watch was. People used it as their, screensavers and this, that. You'll still find it out there somewhere.
Wow.
I got to look and see if I have a picture of it somewhere. But this watch was spectacular. The only problem was it was in a later case. And Rolex was not in the market of building collectible things when they built these things.
Yeah, and I tell that to people. Yeah.
They used, like, I've gotten guys that have, a 2.7 million serial sub. Right. And it'll have, a Mark IV dial in it.
Right.
Or vice versa. You'll get a 3 million serial with a Mark II dial.
It's funny because I had this conversation with Roman today because he had a Mark IV GMT, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Mark IVs, and he didn't know this, and I was like, Mark IVs were known to be in the 3 million cases and 5 million. And he was like, oh, I didn't know that. Because he was like, well, if it was later, he would have considered it dial swapped or so forth. And I was like, no, it's weird. Rolex can balance parts back and forth.
They weren't, the watchmakers there in the 70s, 60s, 50s, they sat there, case came in front of them, they went like this, picked up a dial, put it on the watch, it came in a tray. If somebody mixed up a dial in the tray, the watchmaker didn't know. Watchmakers know the least about this stuff.
Right.
I have seen, fake watches go to watchmakers. On 47th Street, we see a lot of funny stuff.
Right.
Like the modern stuff, like that you would look at and you'd be like, what the hell is that? It's a Batman, but it's fake. These guys, they don't know anything about those clone movements. They don't know anything about, these goofy inserts. They just fix the watches. That's what they do. And you can't blame them because that's not their business.
Right.
They're looking to make $300 an hour, while they're sitting there, which is, a good watchmaker is going to cost you $300 an hour. And, you can't blame them. But I've seen guys, come to me with stuff like, oh, my watchmaker said it was fine. I'm like, your watchmaker doesn't know what he's talking about. The movement is fake, which I don't really care if a movement's fake. If anything's going to be fake in a vintage watch, let it be the movement. Instead of the dial or the hands.
Yeah,
the movement I could always work with.
You can always replace the movement.
Exactly, and a lot of times we do. If we have to, you have to roll with stuff. And Rolex doesn't know what the hell they're doing half the time anyway in Switzerland. You're going to send back, they're not even going to take half the watches that, that have problems because they don't have the parts, and more so, they don't have the expertise in Switzerland they do, okay? But in New York, you can't bring a watch over to there and expect them to know it. They've got these kids that graduated from the Bulliver Watch School, which there's nothing wrong with that. But, if they go through Rolex training in Lancaster, or they, maybe they'll send them over to Switzerland, it's like they don't handle enough of them to really understand what a vintage watch is all about.
Right.
And, listen, we've seen things I had in Tourneau. This was 4 or 5 years ago, and the manager over there, I knew the guy very well. They had an orange hand that was so fake. Everything about it, the case, the dial, the hands, the movement was right. And it was there.
Is it Steve McQueen?
Yeah. And it had service papers with it. They wanted like $35,000 for it.
No.
And it was in the showcase, in the pre-owned showcase on 57th Street. And I go over to the guy, and my friend Vito was over at the other place over on Madison. And I go to Vito. I'm like, Vito, it's like, come on, man, this watch is fake. He's like, well, the movement is right. I was like, bro, I was gonna buy it. Just to buy it. And then I was like, something, why would I take a chance on them not taking the money back? $35,000 it was.
Yeah.
At the time, the watch was maybe 12 grand. It wasn't a lot of money. Orange hands are funny, but the whole thing was fake. Everything about it. And they left it out there. And some poor soul wound up buying this watch. And, you know, he probably is had a problem with it, you know. But that's, you know, that's Rolex, you know, and that's Rolex service, especially in New York. I mean, they don't know because they're young. They fired all the old timers about, I don't know, 2008, 2009. Anybody that was making any money, they just, you know, cut their payroll in half. Now, you know, you've got these young guys there. They're dealing with, you know, regular modern watches. And they'll spot a fake and, you know, one of those Chinese clones or something like that. But you send a vintage watch in there or something over there that they don't see every day, they have no idea.
Yeah. Well.
Not a clue. You know, a stone dial or anything like that. They don't know. And there's some good fake stuff floating around, you know. They've gotten really good over there in Asia and Italy and Germany.
We were talking about Texas dials too. You're mentioning that's a really interesting debate.
Oh boy, this
that's
debate.
Interesting.
Listen,
because there's still people that like. I mean, what's the story that who made them and what made them and how they came about? Because like the printing and the fonts, you know, from a Paul Newman.
Texas dial. Oh, Jesus. You're going to get it out of me. I've never spoken about this on camera. So you've got the first look. Look, I'm not going to mention the dealer's name. Everybody knows who is, you know, assigned to those dials, okay? And he's from Texas, and he's a great guy. He's an OG. He's the OG's OG. It's like I'm not an OG compared to him. I'm like a young buck. I'm like there's like the first wave of the real dealers, and then there's like the second wave. It's like I'm in the second wave. The guys that got into this in the mid to late 90s and started. Yeah. Those other guys, they started this when, you know, back in the day when Newmans and chronographs were, nobody wanted them, you know? And then Osvaldo Patrizzi started with the Italians and made them, you know, popular over there. We made it through the ranks. And you just kind of, you know, you see these dials. I remember, you know, when John Mayer was buying all of these dials. And, you know, I took a lot of heat for standing up and saying that they weren't right. And I left a lot of money on the table. I mean, you know, I remember Gil called me up with one of those. He's like, Buckley, you know, what should I do with this watch? You know, somebody's trading it in. How much should I pay? I was like, I don't want it, you know? Winds up selling it to, I think he sold it to Bob for like a lot of money. Yeah. You know, it's like, okay, good for you. You made money. I don't care. You know, I didn't want any part of it. And I had a really hard time with a lot of guys, you know, because they were content just selling these things as real. And look, they were made, they were well made. You know, but they had, you know, they weren't Rolex quality. If you look at them, you see the one that's sitting over there. Yeah. If you look at it, it's not Rolex quality. Right. It's just not.
Yeah, it looks close, but it's not.
It's, you know, the German ones that were after that. I mean, you know, those were even, you know, very good quality. I remember those Texas dials. The first experience I had with a Texas dial was in New York. And a dealer and friend of mine, a guy named Barry Fleischman, who, OG, I mean, just an OG's OG. And he came up to me, he's like, Buckley, I've got these dials. They're Paul Newman dials. They're $4,500 each. I've got 5 of them. I was like, I don't want those things. I was new to the business. I had no idea, you know, what this was all about. This was like in 98, maybe 97. And you know, that was the cheapest I've ever seen them go for. And I've seen them go, you know, back in the mid 2000s. I mean, they were $100,000 all day long. For a correct. For a 3C ROC, an ROC, you know, 3-color Rolex Oyster Cosmograph dial. And, you know, the Texas dial, that is. I stayed away from them. I never wanted to get involved with them. I would deal in real Newmans, and, you know, that was like one of my favorite things to do. And, you know, I always loved them because you could wear them. Right. You know, and now once they went over $100,000, it was like, they're so fragile. You know, I like to wear my watches. Well, now I stopped wearing watches. I don't know. I'm going through a phase and I'm wearing this every day. And you know what? I'm trying to be like as low key out there as possible because, you know, you see, I mean, you know, you've had issues, you know what I'm saying? Guys have had issues. It's like, I don't want any issues. I don't want to kill anybody. You know, I'm not going to jail at 58 years old for a watch, and I'm not going to give up my watch that easily. So it's like, here you go. You know, you want a watch? Take this one. I'll go buy another one. Right. But we have a lot of that kind of stuff up here. And, that's why security is very important.
It's like crime rate in New York City pretty high right now, right?
I grew up in the 70s in New York, and we rolled out there hard, and I was young, and it was bad. I have never seen it the way it is now with regard to just being an absolute shit show in New York. And 47th Street is the safest place that you're going to be, believe it or not.
It's funny because, I was thinking that to myself. I was talking to my videographer, and I was like, man, this guy's just walking around in open daylight with his Rolex box, just walking around. I'm like, man, you cannot do that.
Can't do that.
Anywhere
you can't
else.
do that.
And I was just like, how are you that comfortable
well,
right now?
You can't do that on 40. The thing about 47th Street is, and I travel heavy. Okay, I travel with people, and we travel heavy.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm walking around with my head on a swivel because that's just how I grew up. I grew up there.
Yeah.
And you see these guys. I mean, if you're not aware, they will follow you home, and they will push you in the house, and they will take your shit.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky, okay, they won't, hurt you or your family, and that's what New York is all about. Then you've got the crazies that are walking around that are just, they'll see something like this and, everybody knows about it now. That's what I don't like about all of this publicity with the business. It's like it used to be, you'd be able to throw a Newman on. I remember going to Jamaica and I was wearing a Saru.
Okay.
At Dunn's River Falls. I got a picture of myself at Dunn's River. And I remember walking, there and all these like hawks coming up to me and I'm walking around like this and I never do that, and I was like, this is not a good idea. At the time it was like maybe a $70,000 watch and I used to walk around like that, and it was just stupid.
Right.
You can't do that now, you just can't. And I see these kids out there, flexing with these mealies and, you go into a restaurant in New York and you're sitting there flexing, you have no idea what the waiter is looking at. You have no idea if the busboy that's coming to fill your water is going to make a phone call and say, hey, this guy's in here. He's going to be leaving. Let's give him a couple of drinks, and he'll be walking out the door. This shit happens over here.
I bet, yeah, because everybody knows about watches.
You never hear about it. We'll hear about it from, our inner circle.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I'm saying. It's like you're not going to read about it in the papers, but these guys, they'll go to a strip club or something like that, and they come home, they don't have a watch on. Forget about their wallet or the credit cards, who cares? But,
right.
They'll go in there with $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 watch. They'll walk out of there and screwed. Done. It's bad.
Yeah.
So you gotta, listen, you're a young guy, you're smart. A lot of these guys, they're heavy into, posing. And it's please, here you go. That's my pose right there. That's posing.
Well, your knowledge speaks volumes about you in regards to what you've done in the past. So it's pretty amazing what you've got going now, especially with this collection. Yeah,
it's worth a whole $100 a dial, maybe. I don't know.
No.
I don't know. Well, I don't know. Maybe we could trade it for the red sub on your wrist or something like that.
Well, if you look around,
I'm sure we can find some stuff to trade.
You've got a collection going on here.
I don't know. There's nothing that excites me anymore. I don't like the mealies. I'm really not big on Patek. I owned one Patek that I wore to wear, and great story. It was right during the John Mayer days. I remember I bought it off Bob, and I had a heart attack. I bought it in February. He shipped it to me, and then like a week later, I had a heart attack, and I was done for like months. And Bob never sent me an invoice. Never, I texted him. I'm like, Bob, I'm gonna say. He's like, don't worry about it. You'll be all right. I'll see you at the show. I wound up seeing him at the show, and I wrote him a check. I wore the watch once. And I couldn't stand it. It was 5036-1, white gold.
Okay.
And it was on a bracelet because I hate straps. And now I'm wearing this thing. But it was a 5036-1. I thought that was the end. I just loved that watch. And I wore it. I put it on. I'm like, I can't do anything in it. Can't clean the pool. I have pool guys that come. I like to clean my pool sometimes.
Right.
I like my pool spotless. And I'll be out there and it's like, I can't wear this outside. What am I going to do? I could wear a Newman out there and not worry about it. I could wear a Rolex and never worry about anything. I could beat the crap out of it. Patek, it's like, it just feels kind of like, I don't know. And now those 5990s and 5980s, it's like, I don't know. I remember we had a window full of them and we couldn't sell them in 2009, 5980s. They were, we bought them, and I think we paid 60 for them. It was as the market was going up just before the Omega, what was it? Omega Revolution auction, and then everything tanked, like 2007, 2008. There was that financial crash. And I think we wound up selling for like 38, 39,000, brand new in the box, And it's like, I think about this stuff. It's like, oh God, It was funny though. But that's the business, You win some, you lose some. Anybody that says they never lose money on a watch, you're not buying enough and you're not selling enough.
Right.
I mean, I lose on probably, 10%, 15% of what I buy because I'm just buying as much crap as I can, But on the stuff that I'm making money on, I make money, and it offsets it.
As long as you're ahead, that's all that matters.
Listen, you have to stay ahead in this game, You're going to find the guys that aren't staying ahead. They're all sitting there with showcases full of super brand new, minty, modern watches. And all you're going to hear on, the websites that we're all over, it's like, well, we all got to stick together on this and, we can't drop our pants. It's like, man, you must be crazy. If I feel like selling a watch for nothing, I'll sell it for nothing. I don't care. It's not going to change my lifestyle if I sell it or not, but I like to sell stuff. I don't want to sit on dead inventory. There are people that have had watches literally for 20 years because they paid too much for them. Literally. I know guys that have watches. I mean, they're good watches.
That's crazy.
But I mean, it's like, what are you doing? It's like, you like the business too much. Me, I've soured on, it's not about passion at this point. It's like, it's just about, for me, it's just, I don't know, it's a gig as far as I'm concerned. I just enjoy doing it because I like the action.
Yeah.
The action is what I'm addicted to. The watches, I can care less if I'm selling this or if I'm selling this. If I'm making a profit on it, go for it.
Right.
Right. It's like, I remember when, I would, oh my God, if I were going out to dinner, I'd like make sure that I had a nice watch on and this and that. Now it's like, I want to go as low key as possible. I get these guys, they want me to go to these red bar things. It's like, I will never go to those things. I don't want to sit and talk about watches with strangers.
I've never been to one of those.
Marco, let me tell you something. I am not one of these guys who sits there and discusses this kind of stuff. It's like, look, you want to buy it? Buy it. You don't want to buy it? Have a nice day. You're going to bring me coffee? Okay, good. I'll talk to you for 5 minutes, but that's about it.
Right.
I'm not going to sit there and discuss, different dial variants or Mark II and 3 versus 3 bezel inserts. It's like, I don't want to hear about that. That is the last thing I want to do. And, these guys, I mean, they're just sitting there, and I mean, half of them know next to nothing, okay, because all their information comes from looking at pictures on the internet.
Right.
And you cannot do this looking at pictures on the internet. You can do it to a certain level.
Right.
Then you got to have the shit in your hand. Viper, Arthur.
Right.
Arthur has really, great collection. And he says this all the time. And he's like, John, I don't care what anybody says. You're never going to know what's right or wrong unless you're comparing it to something side by side. If it's a really important piece, you've got to compare it side by side to something that is documented to be right. And he's one of these guys. He's an erotic maniac. I mean, I love him to death. And I mean, we put together a collection for him over the years that's, great collection, just fantastic collection. And, he's right. I mean, you can't do this just by looking at pictures on Chrono 24. You can't look at a red subdial and, know all of the idiosyncrasies and all of the little, bullet points that'll make one a 10 or make it 9.5. There's a big difference.
True.
I get guys, they show up and they'll show me a double red. And the first thing I see is this little knock right at 30 minutes and 57 minutes. Right there, the little paint chips.
Right.
Because somebody, didn't know what they were doing. And then you get the, now everybody's into stone dials. It's like, oh my God, really? Gee, all of a sudden they've come around. It's like, oh, the dial is perfect. Guy comes up, shows me a watch.
And then it's cracked.
He shows me a watch. And it was a beautiful watch. It was a lapis. And, he shows up, this is a couple of weeks ago. He's like, oh, John, yeah. I was like, oh, nice. He's showing me his watch. All right, I'll look at it. I'll make you feel good. And, I look at it right at the day window. Little crack.
Yeah.
Little crack. It's like, when you know where to look, it's really easy to spot this stuff.
Yeah, the Daytona stone dials have issues cracking between the subdials.
Yeah, they crack in the subdials.
Yeah,
I had that one that what do you call it? The sodalite that I had that I wound up getting another dial for it. And it had that little crack. And a lot of times the stone dials, guys don't know how to deal with them,
Right.
the watchmakers. And whenever a stone dial comes over here, if it's perfect, I'm going to take it out. I go over there, I sit there nice and quiet, and I do it myself. Because if anyone's going to fuck it up, it'll be me. Because I gave a tiger's eye dial to one of my watchmakers. Best watchmaker on the street. Comes back like this.
Man.
I mean, back then they were worth maybe 10 grand, 15 grand. Now forget about it. And I go, I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, that was there. I'm like, come on, man. It's like, how much money do I pay you every week? Just say you did it. I know there's nothing I could do about it, but it's like, just say you did it. Another time.
That's definitely a big problem in the industry.
Oh, because you know what it is with those dials? They button up the feet. They tighten them too tight.
And then
the
just
dial
flexes.
goes like this.
Yeah.
And then you push it in the case, and then these sides are bowed, and it snaps, and it snaps. You got to have a touch with it. And Arthur is, Viper is probably, he's not a trained watchmaker, but one of the guys that I trust to remove, hands from a Newman dial that are bottomed out, something like that. It's like, Arthur, you do it. He's like, John, I'm taking it home. I'm going to sit at my bench. I'm going to do it nice and quiet. I'm not going to do it in your basement because you're going to want me to do it with, 2 screwdrivers or something like that. Because, all right. Because I'm just like, let's get it done. He's like, no, take it home. I'm like, all right, take it home. And, he'll come back with it. It'll be perfect. But not all watchmakers, you got to send it to places that if you're really worried about it, you got to send it to somebody. And even then, you don't know. I saw a guy, oh my God, I was standing right there. A 6542 yellow gold.
Oh, wow.
Okay. The watch was drop dead mint. It was a museum piece. Okay. Kid is standing there watching the watchmaker. I'm standing there too.
Man.
Right? Drops the movement, gives it a twist. The Swiss comes right off. Okay, 75 grand. Back then the watch was maybe an $80,000, $90,000 watch. Well, now it's a $30,000 watch. And what are you going to do? The watchmakers are going to stand by. You can't just tell the watchmaker, oh, you got to buy me another dial. Go find one.
Right. No, I
mean, go find one. You'll never, it's just not.
That watch is, yeah.
It's, it's
I've
crazy.
witnessed a few stuff like that before. Yeah, it sucks. I've had double reds that I've taken to watchmakers and the guy twisted and it just shredded the side of the...
Can't twist it.
Yeah.
And you got, even if you don't twist it, you don't know how much humidity was ever in that, it's got a lot to do with, if there was humidity in the watch, if it's a little sticky, if it's a little tacky when you put it there, and who knows, sometimes the oils get in, if there's a vapor, if it ever had any air inside of it, you don't know until you drop it. And I always, if I'm dropping one of those, like your dial, I take the screws out, and, I'm just going to drop the whole thing. Right. I'm not going to fuck with it. I'm not going to twist it out. I'm just going to drop it out of the case and hope for the best, because you twist it, you'll have a problem.
Oh yeah, it starts chipping the dial.
Yeah, you don't need that in your life.
Nope.
You definitely don't need that. Neither do I.
Do I see a Tiffany dial?
I don't know. Do you? Oh yeah, there's a Tiffany Buckley in there. Yeah. Somebody removed the end.
Oh,
I don't know how that happens.
Yeah, it looks like somebody just sat there and rubbed it. And it's a rose gold too,
yeah.
It looks like.
Oh, you want to talk about Tiffany dials? Please. Tiffany dials. Oh my God. The most subjective group of dials in Rolex.
Yeah.
So subjective.
It is they're very subjective.
You know what? I had friends that worked at Fifth Avenue and they would stamp the dials.
For Tiffany?
Yes. That's how they did it. And they'd also bring in a whole bunch of them in their pocket and they'd stamp those too. So it's like, look, with Cartier, you'd have a call number on the back. Okay, you'd have the lug, and it'd have a number, 5. I think it's a 5 or a 4-digit number.
I've seen those same 4 or 5-digit numbers on the back of Tiffany's.
I don't know. I don't know, unless that's something that they're doing new. But
no.
I know Cartier always had the call numbers, and I had a Cartier 5513 and NAWCC deal. Guy had the watch. The guy was 100 years old. He was going to die with this thing, and he knew that I wanted it. He calls me up one day. He's like, John, meet me at the hotel. over the Hilton over on Route 18, and you could take the watch. I went, okay. Like, I run there, I meet him. I was hoping that he was going to make it. He wasn't going to croak on me before I got there, and he lived, thank God. And
This is what you're thinking.
I think I bought it. That's my thinking. I'm sorry.
Man,
I'm not the nicest. I just seem like a nice person. Yeah, right. In person, but no, I'm not. I'm terrible. But I go there.
A vulture situation.
Oh, I'm a vulture. I gave him the $3,500. Then I had to find a dial. I find the dial, okay? By chance, I find it. Put it together. Had a collector that wanted this watch, wanted it with a dial. I cannot tell you how many hours I put in looking for the dial, okay?
I've been there.
I find the dial, put it in, okay? Guy takes the watch, pays for it. And it was a guy that I was friends with. And I didn't bang him out. I was like, I knew he wanted it. I was like, listen, just fine. He was a good guy. And that was fine with me. And gets the watch, and he brings it to Switzerland.
Oh, boy.
Okay, yeah. So I'm like, take it to Switzerland. I don't care. Oh, there's the numbers. It went through Cartier. Takes it to Switzerland. And it comes back that the watch was not sold out of Cartier, New York. It was sold out of a different Cartier. And they couldn't tell which one it was from. He wound up giving me the watch back, which was fine. I wound up making a ton of money off somebody else. But this is the mentality that you've got with a lot of these guys. It's like they're so hell-bent on the details. And the details are really important, okay? It's like they are important. I get it. It's like I spent my life, learning the details. But some of this stuff, it's like you didn't pay a lot of money for this thing.
But yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's like, it was stupid.
Well, back then, yeah.
Marco, it was stupid, the amount of money that he paid for it. It was not a lot of money. Okay? I mean, I think I paid probably $5,000 for the dial. I paid $3,500 for the watch. I think I sold it to the guy maybe $10,000. Okay? Guy was a good friend.
And what do you think that watch is in today's market?
100, if that.
Right.
I think I wound up selling it for like 15 or 20 grand. Like the guy gave it back. And I was like, okay, give it back. No problem. Here's your money. No, here, I'll send you a wire. Just ship it back to me. And that was fine with me. But this is the mentality that drives me nuts. I get a call yesterday. Person needs a watch. Need it with specific dial, in the watch and papers. I get the watch with the papers, U.S. papers with the dial written on it. Okay? And I didn't care because I was buying the watch anyway. Oh, well, they want something a little nicer. I'm like, okay, well, what is it that what exactly are they looking for? Do they want the dial? Do they want the papers? Do they want the watch? Or they just want the whole thing? Because if they want the whole thing, then I'm a wholesale guy. This is not, if I have it, more power to you. If I don't have it, have a nice day. Continue your search, Godspeed, and have a nice day. Bye. And they, this is what you're dealing with right now with a lot of the younger dealers. They're all brokers. None of them have their own money. Okay, one thing about us, we fund everything ourselves. If I cannot afford to buy something to sell to somebody, I'm not buying it. Okay, I'm not gonna, unless it's just, somebody's like, listen, could you get this watch to, I want the watch. It's like, okay, you want the watch? Here you go, write a check. And then I'll write a check to whomever it is that's selling it to me. I'm not getting involved in any of these weird, like three-way deals with people. If you want something, you pay for it. If you don't want to pay for it up front, don't buy it. What do you want from me? I'm not going to lay out money and then you're going to look at it and then I've got to return a watch. I'm not going to return a watch. Take a look around you. I don't return very much stuff. Yeah. And there are plenty of those over the years that I've bought that people, oh, I want this. All right, I'll buy it. And there you go. It's like, oh, no, I don't want it. It's like, really? Okay. But it's usually the last time I deal with them. And I'm very impatient with that kind of,
those type of buyers.
That's why I deal wholesale. I deal with other dealers. I deal with the same 10 or 12 people every day. And, I do a lot of Instagram business, which is mostly the same people. I mean, every once in a while you get a new person but they're all, part of the same fraternity of guys that we all know. So it's like, they'll know one of the main guys that I deal with. And, I'll be like, is this guy okay? It's like, oh yeah, no problem. I'm like, all right, I'll send him the watch first. I don't care.
Right.
I'm not worried about that. Just make sure when he gets the watch, the wire is out. When the watch is when the watch scans, send the wire. Okay, because I don't want you, and I've had this happen, and I say this a lot of times on, a lot of these, on Vadim's site and stuff like that, you get a lot of these new guys that are, that haven't had, they haven't had the glory of the coming of the Lord hit them. Like when somebody says to you, oh, can you ship me this watch? It's like, yeah, sure. It's like, okay, I'm going to send you the wire as soon as it hits. It's like, okay. You send them the watch and the guy dies.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of fun. A lot of fun, that is. Not fun. So, it's like, listen, the watch is going to scan in. You make sure that wire is on its way. I don't mind waiting on a wire as long as the wire is already sent and the watch is shipped. That's cool. Again, there are people that, I deal with that I don't get.
Right.
Because I know their families. There's years of business involved, so I don't have to worry. But some of these randoms, somebody's going to get a box, on their front door because their FedEx guy is one of these guys that just leaves shit.
Right. Well, that's happened.
Yeah, that's happened.
Definitely happened.
It's
it happened to us back in March 2020.
Really?
Yeah. Back when the pandemic started. I mean, these FedEx drivers started ignoring the signature requirements and said, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna leave this package here.
I had a guy bought a watch off me a year or so ago. Good guy, one of my regulars. And he's like, does the watch pressure test? I'm like, yeah, I pressure tested it myself. I did it in the city and I did it, on this thing, which is archaic, but you know what? It works. Calls me up from Aruba. John, there's a fog on the inside of the watch. I'm like, okay. Did you screw down the crown? Oh yeah, the crown was screwed down. I'm like,
I've definitely been in these situations before.
I'm like, listen, just, you know what? I'll send you a label when you get it. Turn it upside down, put it in some rice or whatever. He's like, no, it's not really that bad. I'm like, okay, well, let it dry off. Turn it upside down so that the condensation doesn't get on the dial. The dial was fine, okay? And if something was, wrong with the watch, I would have obviously taken care of it. But I know the watch pressure tested.
Right.
And I know that he didn't button it up. Sometimes people don't,
and it's harder to hear.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't done that. I've never not buttoned up my crown and went in the water.
I don't think I've ever done that. I've never. No. Well, I don't even take watches in the water.
I always did.
Oh, really?
That was one of the things. It was like, if I'm going on vacation, I'm not going to leave the watch in my shoe if I'm going in the ocean.
Right. Well,
okay. Yeah. I'm not going to leave the watch with my wife, sitting, not that I couldn't, but it's like, no, I'm going to wear the damn thing. I was in Italy just before the pandemic. And I had my ceramic Daytona. And I mean, the watch went everywhere with me. Went into the water, went, everywhere. And that's what you're supposed to do with them. I mean, now I probably wouldn't even wear, a good watch traveling. That was probably the last time I was going to do it. Right. I didn't know it then at the time, but it's crazy. It's just a crazy world out there. And it's just such a turnoff that you can't wear your watches anymore.
Well, everybody, thanks so much for watching, and I want to thank John Buckley for having me and learning a little bit more about the Buckley dials and obviously the interesting history he comes from in the watch world. It's completely different from our world. Like you come from a crazy background of different type of hustling, man, and I respect that. I mean, those 47th Street guys, man. It's a different world.
It's a different world.
It's a different world. So again, just thanks for having us, and it was definitely a pleasure.
Man.
Absolutely.
Anytime. Come back again.